Good morning, students. Today we are going to read another very important question in the topic of War of Independence in the subject of History O levels. Today's question is, was the introduction of the Doctrine of Lapse in 1852 the most important reason that led to the War of Independence? Give your reasons. So this is the question. If this question comes in the paper, because you are required to give your verdict, either this one was the most important reason or not. First, you will discuss all problems which led to the War of Independence, and at the end, you will give your verdict which reason was the most important one. This war was fought against the British for the restoration of the Mughal rule in this subcontinent and to get rid of the oppressive and tyrannical rule of the British. And the reasons are, first reason is religious problems. Parda, which was social custom of all Muslim women, was abolished by the government and girls were forcibly sent to co-educational schools, which were against the practices of some conservative families. The Hindu tradition of sati, in which the widow burned herself with her husband, was abolished. So these were the main religious reasons which led to the War of the Independence. Some other religious problems are, patronage was given to Christian missionaries by the government, which led to the belief that the government wanted to interfere with the people's religion. Moreover, people were forced to convert, and those who did were highly favored by the British. Another religious problem was the Indian army, which consisted of both Hindus and Muslims, was supplied with cartridges which had to be unfolded by chewing cow, and whereas pig meat, cow as a sacred animal of the Hindus, and pig meat is strictly forbidden in Islam. So these were some religious problems due to which the War of the Independence was started. Now we are going to discuss the economic problems, economic and political problems. The British annexed territories through forceful annexations and through wars. Sindh was annexed in 1843, Punjab in 1849, and Oudh in 1856. So this was economic and political problem. They were annexing the territories through forceful annexation. Doctrine of the Lapse was the policy introduced by the government in 1852, by which a state would go to the government if its ruler failed to produce an heir. Only the Rani of the Jhansi took up arms against the government, against the British, and fought bravely till she was defeated and killed. Wealth of the India was being transferred to England, and poverty prevailed. British and English-speaking personals were preferred for high post and important jobs. All Indians were removed from high government posts. In their place, British were appointed. Moreover, there was a remarkable difference in the salaries of the British and the Indian employees. The Hindus were selected for lower administrative jobs because of their education. Lowest and most inferior jobs were given to the Muslims. Disbandment of the princely armies and dissolution of the native darbars gave rise to the widespread unemployment because the people who were working there were unemployed. Moreover, the loan terms for the Indians were very harsh, and if anyone failed to repay to loan, his property was confiscated. Indigenous industries were throttled by competition with cheap machine-made goods imported from Britain. As a result, these industries collapsed and unemployment increased, worsening the economic conditions of the Indians. Pensions and titles of many state rulers were discontinued. It created great unrest among the public. So these were some economic and political problems which led to the War of the Independence. Now we are going to discuss cultural and social problems. During the Mughal rule, Persian was the official language, but when the British authorities strengthened in India, they made English the official language in 1835. English was introduced in all schools and colleges. The British, enforcing their own educational system, tried to erase Islamic way of education, and this led to discontentment amongst the masses. Hindu soldiers did not like their postings outside the country. Vast reforms in railways, telegraph, and Western education aroused suspicion among people who thought that British wished to westernize them. There was a great lack of the understanding between the rulers and the ruled. If a British committed a crime, he was taken to a special court, whereas if an Indian committed a crime, he was taken to an ordinary court and mostly suffered unjust decisions at the hands of the British judges. The British had kept themselves aloof from the Indian people. Their behavior was arrogant and they treated the Indians as inferiors. They did not know the needs, wishes, and desires of the Indian people. So these were some cultural problems. So now, the most important and real cause was the introduction of the greased cartridges. These cartridges were covered with animal fat, cows and pig's fat, and were to be bitten by teeth before loading in rifles. Both Muslims and Hindu soldiers refused to use these cartridges because cow is a sacred animal for Hindus and pig is a prohibited animal for Muslims. That's why they refused to use those cartridges, which were actually their cartridges were actually made from the cows and pig's fat. A regiment of the soldiers at Meerut was a place, rose up in revolt and killed the British officers and their families. They broke open the jails and released their fellow spies. The regiment then marched towards Delhi, where they declared Bahadur Shah II as Emperor of Hindustan and pledged to fight against the British in order to end the rule of the British East India Company. Thus, the War of the Independence or revolt started and spread to many places such as Delhi, Lucknow, Kanpur, Jhansi, and Gwalior. So, this was the most important reason which actually started or triggered the War of the Independence, the introduction of the greased cartridges. So read this lecture again, students, very carefully and make your notes. Thank you so much.